Yo, what's up guys, welcome to my humble YouTube channel where I bring you fanfiction that will brighten your days. Before we start, a subscribe is greatly appreciated, and don't forget to leave a like and ring the bell icon so you won't miss exciting new fanfiction stories. Tensura. Melting the Eternal Frost by JackDaWeb, Chapter 21, Glimpsing into Infinity. Rimuru's paw of the second round of the fighting tournament was about to commence, with the first battle being Mazul versus Masayuki. It'll be interesting to see how Masayuki gets out of this one. Jinrai willingly conceded victory out of respect for his party leader, but Mazul was a ruthless beast. While Masayuki does have a sword, I doubt he knows how to use it. How do you think he'll get out of this, Rimuru-kun? Velgrynd asked curiously, and I thought for a moment before answering. Maybe his skill will cause his opponent to run into the wall or something. I'm not entirely sure, but it's probably something stupid like that, I replied half-jokingly, making Velgrynd giggle in response. Foo, I can see that happening, she said earnestly. I suppose there's only one way to find out, I uttered before returning my attention to the arena. Third-person paw of Soka returned to the stage and was met by the loud cheers from the crowd. Everyone was excited to witness the first battle of the second round, especially since it involved the great lightspeed hero. The announcer made a few remarks about the previous 4 fights before calling upon the two combatants. Mazul versus Masayuki. Masayuki walked into the arena apprehensively, his legs shaking uncontrollably. Meanwhile, his opponent, Mazul, entered with full confidence and power behind each step. The two slowly closed the gap between them and eventually entered a stare-down. Once they were both ready, Diablo commenced the match and the crowd roared in excitement. Instantly, Mazul rushed at his opponent with full killing intent. He aimed his spear at Masayuki's chest to pierce through it. Now in a panicked state, Masayuki frantically dodged to the right, successfully disrupting his attacker's attempt. Mazul's forward momentum almost sent him straight into the wall, but he managed to halt his movement in time. Mazul turned around with an annoyed and angered expression on his face. Masayuki looked like he was about to shit himself. Not giving him a moment to think, Mazul rushed at his opponent again. But then, when he was just a few feet away from victory, something unexpected happened. Masayuki unsheathed his weapon and held it in front of him while closing his eyes in fear. When Mazul's spear made contact with Masayuki's sword, the impact generated a powerful shockwave that shook the battlefield. The attack was somehow blocked despite Masayuki's half-hearted attempt, leaving the two fighters utterly surprised. Everyone erupted into a thundering cheer while Rimuru and his maid were in disbelief. Such power. Mazul thought fearfully. Masayuki finally opened his eyes and was shocked to see himself holding up against a more massive opponent. Despite him putting almost no strength into the block, it managed to completely overpower his adversary. Seeing this, Mazul quickly backed away to regain his footing while Masayuki was still stunned. Realizing the true power of his skill, Masayuki decided to abandon all logic and self-preservation. He took a deep breath before running at his opponent while flailing his sword around aimlessly. This move left Mazul in utter confusion, so he decided to stay put and see what Masayuki was planning. As soon as Masayuki was close enough to his enemy, his random flailing of his sword managed to strike the body of Mazul. There was no strength behind Masayuki's attack, and he even hit his opponent with the blunt end of the sword. But this did not matter, since the seemingly weak hit sent Mazul flying into the wall, knocking him out as a result. The crowd erupted into cheers, and Masayuki was declared the winner of the match. Diablo came in to heal Mazul before sending the two fighters off in preparation for the next fight. While the people were ecstatic about the outcome, Rimuru and Velgrynd were still in disbelief regarding what they witnessed. Winner. Masayuki. Rimuru's paw of just. What the hell was that? I thought his skill saved him from trouble and boosted his allies, not give him immense strength. He swung that sword with such little force that it looked like it couldn't even swat away a fly. But it still sent his opponent flying away, instantly ending the battle. Similar to Xian's unique skill, Cooked, Chosen One, can guarantee the most optimal outcome for the user. The difference between them is that the outcome cannot be chosen. Masayuki himself is unaware of how to utilize his skill since it functions completely passively. This guy really does have plot armor as a skill. Sigh, that's quite troublesome, to be honest. I know he's an earnest and kind guy, but I'll have to keep an eye on him. It's good to always be on the lookout for potential threats. Now that was something. His skill is quite powerful, I must say, Velgrynd remarked honestly. Yeah. I'll be keeping an eye on him from now on. Letting him run loose with a skill like that will be dangerous, I replied seriously, causing Velgrynd to chuckle. Foo, I agree. You should ensure he won't become detrimental to your plans, she stated earnestly, and I nodded in agreement. I looked back at the arena and saw that the last fight of the second round was about to commence. Third-person Pav, the announcer, returned to the stage and excitedly called upon the next fighters. For the second fight, the combatants were Gobta and Geld. On the surface, this fight was the very definition of unfair. But Gobta had a trick that could potentially even the scales. After a few seconds, Diablo gave them the go, and the crowd roared in excitement. Gobta vs Geld. Gobta used the same trick in his first match and unsheathed his sword, releasing a bolt of black lightning from his scabbard. This move was less effective since Geld managed to tank it with Guardian and multi-layer barrier. Seeing this, Gobta immediately revealed his trump card and activated his unique skill, Give Me Strength. In the next instant, Ranga emerged from Gobta's shadow, and a frightening transformation occurred. Geld was momentarily stunned but quickly dashed in with his cleaver to seize the opportunity to strike. Unfortunately, he wasn't quick enough, and the transformation finished when he was only a few meters away. What stepped out of the shadows was a terrifying fusion between Gobta and Ranga. Ranga is by far one of Rimuru's strongest subordinates. He holds enough power to devastate a large city by himself due to his vast range and destructive capabilities. Fused with Gobta, they become a force to be reckoned with. Geld became apprehensive upon seeing his newly transformed foe. Making the first move, Gobta struck using Black Lightning. Geld reacted quickly and activated Predation to absorb the attack. The gigantic werewolf rushed in and attempted to strike his opponent with his paw but was stopped by Geld's cleaver. Using this opportunity, Geld tried to use Corrosion to deal damage to Gobta, but he quickly backed away to evade it. Gobta then used Body Double to create two clones of himself. This move would serve to distract Geld and give Gobta enough time to charge up a powerful lightning attack. Remembering the spar between Rimuru and Veldora, Gobta and Ranga readied themselves to replicate a powerful move they saw. While Geld was busy fighting off the two werewolf clones, Gobta began infusing his front paws with Black Lightning. Eventually, Geld managed to defeat the two clones and was now ready to face off against the real body of his enemy. The two rushed at each other with frightening speed. As Geld attempted to slash with his cleaver, Gobta activated Shadow Motion and appeared behind Geld. Unfortunately, Geld wasn't able to react fast enough, and Gobta managed to land a Black Flash on his enemy, albeit it is a much weaker version compared to Rimuru's or Veldora's. Despite this, the attack sent Geld flying into the wall, cracking it on impact. The hit wasn't fatal, but it was powerful enough to leave cracks in Geld's armor and even dent it. After such a powerful display, Geld accepted his defeat with honor. The crowd went wild and roared as a result of the epic showdown. Diablo did his usual job of healing any injuries before sending the two combatants off. Gobta's victory concluded the second round and meant that the third round would be between him and Masayuki. Winner. Gobta. Rimuru's Pav. Is that allowed? I mean, that was extremely impressive, don't get me wrong. But what the hell? Ranga is one of my strongest subordinates, so having him in the tournament would basically be a guaranteed win. Diablo, was a move like that allowed at all? I asked him through thought communication. Yes, Rimuru-sama. What Gobta did would fall under summoning, which is allowed in the tournament, he replied quickly and respectfully. I see. I suppose that's fine, but that was still very unexpected. Who would have thought that Gobta, of all people, would make it to the finale of the fighting tournament? I wonder what the others think about what just happened. Sigh, that was quite a fraudulent move. But I guess it is allowed. I should have expected something like that from him. Hakuro remarked in a disappointed tone, earning a laugh from us. Ha ha ha. In all fairness, without Ranga, a battle between Geld and Gobta shouldn't even be discussed. Benimaru replied jokingly. I'll have to make his training a lot harsher from now on. Hakuro stated with an evil grin. Unexpectedly, Milim flew over to us with an excited look on her face. Oh, can I train those two? I see a lot of potential in their fusion ability, so I'd like to train them to use it better, Milim declared loudly, catching our attention. Milim-sama. You would train that brat and Ranga? Benimaru asked, slightly surprised. I'll make sure they'll shape up and become an even more powerful duo, Milim replied confidently, and we all looked at one another before speaking. Ho, I'm sure those two would become great under your guidance, Milim-sama, Hakuro said with a devilish grin on his face. Oh no, those two are so dead. Fufufu, I agree, Hakuro-san. If anyone can help them become more powerful, then Milim-chan certainly could. Velgrynd chimed in earnestly, and Milim's eyes widened in surprise. Yosh. Then it's settled. I will personally train those two in the dungeon to improve their abilities, Milim stated enthusiastically, and Velgrynd nodded with a smile. By the way, why do you look like that, Auntie Velgrynd? Milim asked cutely while tilting her head to the side. Velgrynd's face reddened in embarrassment while everyone tried their hardest not to pay attention to it. Well, I wanted to try a new look, so I asked Rimuru-kun for a suggestion. Velgrynd answered sheepishly, and Milim turned to me with an amused expression. Wahahaha. I didn't know you were into that, bestie, she said jokingly, and I felt my cheeks heat up. Oi, I'm not, I just made a random suggestion on the spot, I denied profusely, knowing full well it was a lie. Velgrynd looked at me with a cheeky smirk as she witnessed my execution. Will you look like that during our fight later? Milim asked curiously, and Velgrynd shook her head. Luckily, Rimuru-kun permitted me to change into my normal appearance during our fight. Velgrynd answered with a smug grin. Stop making things worse. I must say, that is a very specific and interesting suggestion, Rimuru-san. Elmisha chimed in playfully. Damn it. I'm being cornered again. This whole thing was supposed to be embarrassing for Velgrynd, but she looks incredibly amused right now. Let's not focus on that. Look, everyone. The final round is about to start, I announced loudly while pointing at the arena to draw attention away from me. Everyone laughed before turning away and looking back at the fighting ring. Phew. Crisis averted. Third-person Pav Soka returned to the stage and then briefly talked about the fights in the second round. After much excitement from the audience, she announced the third round and the two combatants. The final round will determine the champion of the fighting tournament, and the battle will be between Masayuki and Gobta. The two were called to the arena, causing the crowd to burst into loud cheering. Masayuki and Gobta made their way to the center of the arena and entered a stare-down. With excitement building up in the audience, Diablo commenced the fight. Wasting no time, Gobta immediately activated his transformation and fused with Ranga. Masayuki looked scared beyond belief as his opponent began manifesting a powerful storm inside the arena. Lightning began striking the ground everywhere, and Masayuki frantically dodged the onslaught of thunder. Thanks to his unique skill, Masayuki managed to dodge each attack, causing Gobta to grow infuriated. Gobta charged up a black flash, and then rushed towards his opponent at full speed. Masayuki barely dodged out of the way as Gobta was sent barreling towards the wall. He wasn't able to stop his own momentum, and he ended up striking the barrier with his lightning-infused attack, which rebounded and sent a shock through his body. Now momentarily weakened, the death storm dissipated. This brief window gave time for Masayuki to rush in and begin flailing his sword again. Once he got within range of Gobta, his sword struck the werewolf's body with tremendous force, sending him flying a few meters. However, Gobta wasn't finished yet. He quickly regained his footing before launching a condensed bolt of black lightning at Masayuki. Realizing his predicament, Masayuki quickly held up his sword to block the attack, and he shut his eyes in fear. The lightning rebounded against the sword and went right back to Gobta, electrocuting him. It wasn't fatal, but it was enough to weaken him and sever the fusion. The crowd fell silent for what felt like an eternity before eventually erupting into the loudest cheer they'd ever done throughout the tournament. Diablo, as usual, healed the fighters' wounds and then sent Gobta and Ranga off. With this, the fighting tournament had concluded, ending with the Lightspeed Heroes' victory. Champion. Masayuki Rimuru's Pav. Good grief. That guy and his skill are really something else. I guess that makes Masayuki the official champion of the Grand Tournament of Battle. After Soka ended with her closing remarks, I expanded my wings and flew towards the stage. My actions caught everyone's attention, and I recollected myself before walking to the podium. I looked around at the audience and then at Masayuki before speaking. I give you my utmost congratulations for becoming the champion of this tournament. Stand proud, Masayuki. You are strong. I praised him earnestly with a cheeky little reference. It seems like he understood it since he lightly chuckled to himself. Masayuki. 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 The crowd chanted loudly. I waited for everyone to calm down before continuing. Now then, as the champion of the tournament, you have officially gained the right to challenge me, I announced proudly and paused to gauge everyone's reaction. Masayuki's expression turned into one of utter fear while the audience resumed their chanting. What will your answer be, Masayuki? I asked with a serious tone, and the chanting abruptly died down. A few seconds later, Masayuki regained his composure and was ready to speak up. Ehem. While I am honored to receive this right, I would like to humbly refuse. As a hero, my job is to extinguish all evil in this world. Judging from your actions throughout this festival, I can confidently state that you are not a malevolent being, he stated firmly before bowing out of respect. His actions made the crowd audibly gasp in surprise. You have my greatest respect, Demon Lord Rimuru Tempest, he proclaimed loudly, and the audience's surprise turned into cheering once again. I gave him a nod of approval in response. Likewise, Masayuki, I replied with equal respect, and the crowd applauded. Looks like he stuck to our script from before. When I asked him to join the tournament, we devised a script for him in case he won the whole event. The goal was to get him to refuse my challenge without earning a bad reputation as a hero, while at the same time, his skill would do its magic and influence the people to view me in a better light. This plan ended up working perfectly. Masayuki then walked on stage and was given the reward for becoming the champion. The reward was a trophy in the shape of a sword and 100 gold coins. After accepting his award, Masayuki made his way to the center of the stage and bowed deeply, causing the audience to applaud once again. He then left the stage, and everyone thought that the event was over. But a surprise would be waiting for them, one that I feared deeply. I looked back to the VIP area and saw that Milim and Velgrynd were already gone from their seats. I guess it's time. As if reading my mind, Velgrynd flew over to the stage and landed right next to me. His presence during this moment gave me a bit of reassurance for what was to come. Everyone, I hope you all had a good time witnessing all the eventful fights. But before we end the tournament, there is one more battle you'll get to witness, I announced loudly and vaguely, earning everyone's attention. I looked around and saw the excitement in the crowd's eyes. As you may all know by now, the White Ice Dragon herself, Velgrynd, decided to move into Tempest not too long ago. After a long discussion, she made the decision to participate in the true finale of the tournament, I continued. This time, the audience gasped even louder than before. And her opponent will be none other than the destroyer, Milim Nava, I yelled loudly, dropping the biggest bombshell of everyone's life. The spectators roared into a cheer that shook the entire Colosseum. A few moments after my announcement, a meteor with a bright pink glow crashed into one side of the arena. The impact carved a decently sized crater out of the ground. From the smoke, Milim emerged with an excited grin on her face. Her entrance was grand and a bit over the top, but it's fitting for someone like her. Wahahahahaha. It is I, a member of the OCTAGRAM, and the DESTOYER, Milim Nava. She introduced herself loud and proud. The audience applauded her mighty entrance. Ice and mist began coalescing in the air from the other side of the arena. The temperature dropped to frigid levels as Milim's opponent walked through the entrance full of grace and divinity. Luckily for the spectators, the snowstorm was contained within the barrier. Even still, they felt a chilling sensation course through their soul as Velgrynd stepped outside the mist. She had returned to her normal appearance for the battle. Her aura was freezing, to the point that it even slightly affected Velgrynd, a true dragon himself. It's hard to imagine that the beautiful maid with me earlier was the same person as the terrifying yet beautiful woman who stood before me. Foo, and my name is Velgrynd, the White Ice Dragon. She introduced herself elegantly and the crowd watched in awe as she gracefully walked to the middle of the battlefield. The two combatants made their way to the center of the arena and entered a stare-down. They were waiting for my cue to start. Wasting no time, I got rid of the stage in the arena and teleported outside the barrier. Velgrynd quickly followed me. I amplified the barrier with everything I had in my arsenal. Right now, the effects of skill nullification, multi-dimensional barrier, and white ice magic were holding up the barrier, and I used a slightly inferior version of Velgrynd's snow crystal as an extra layer of defense. The entire Colosseum was also within my imaginary space, to keep the outside world from harm. Doing all this meant that I was using up a lot of magicules. Thankfully, Veldora was giving me a steady supply through our soul corridor. All of this should be enough. But if it isn't, then I'll have to use True Dragon Release for the first time. I took a deep breath and looked around at the audience before commencing the fight. What you're about to witness is a battle on a scale never witnessed. Consider yourselves honored and lucky to be able to spectate such a clash. While our combatants won't be giving it their all, they will still provide everyone a glimpse into the infinity. Now, let the battle commence, I announced loudly, and the crowd erupted into loud cheering. Milim and Velgrynd circled around the arena while keeping their gaze locked on each other. The tension was so high that no one said anything. The Colosseum fell silent. After what felt like an eternity, the two of them finally stopped walking. Milim clenched her fist before exploding off towards her opponent. Instantly, a flash filled the arena as Milim rushed at her aunt to deliver the first strike. It was the same punch that she hit me with during our little fight at Walpurgis. However, it seemed to be much stronger this time. To my surprise, Velgrynd didn't block or evade the attack. Instead, she remained completely still and let her barriers absorb the hit. Velgrynd specialized in perfect defense, a perfect counter to Milim's incredibly destructive offense. White ice magic was now being used by its originator, and Milim was infusing her hits with something called Star King magic. While their battle was happening, Seal was analyzing every move that those two made. I'm sure she'll get something extremely useful out of this fight. Do you think they'll hold back? Veldora asked a bit anxiously. I can only hope so. In the meantime, I'll be asking for your assistance, I replied apprehensively. Of course, sworn brother, he affirmed loudly. Milim quickly flew back to put some distance between herself and her opponent. Now at a safe distance, Milim began charging up an attack. Velgrynd remained calm and began walking towards her niece, seemingly without concern. Drago Buster! Milim yelled loudly and then expelled the powerful attack from her hand. A bright light engulfed Velgrynd, making it difficult to see the outcome. After a few seconds, everything had cleared and Velgrynd was completely unharmed. Her calm smile and elegant demeanor hadn't wavered. It reminded me of that one scene in Dragon Ball where Broly walked through Goku's Kamehameha. Milim's grin grew wider after seeing her aunt take a full Drago Buster, unscathed. Wahahaha! You truly are as impressive as they say, Auntie Velgrynd, Milim praised genuinely, and Velgrynd nodded with a smile. Foo, of course, I am. After all, I am the most powerful of the true dragons alive today. Velgrynd responded pridefully. Then why don't we take things up a notch? Milim declared excitedly. Oi! What the fuck? That was not part of the plan. Oi! What are you two doing? I asked loudly, but I was completely ignored. Velgrynd floated up high above the ground and then sent off a frost beam towards Milim. It was the same attack I had used against Veldora during our fight. Only this time, it's a lot more powerful. The attack phased through Milim's barrier and she responded by striking it with her fist. To my surprise, it didn't blow her arm off her body. Instead, it only coated it in ice, and Milim easily shook it off. Amazing. My arm hasn't felt that numb in a while, Milim voiced loudly with a crazed grin on her face. Let's play some more, Milim-chan. Velgrynd urged softly, like an aunt wanting to spend some time with her niece. The only difference is that both of them had crazed and devilish expressions. Responding to Velgrynd's provocation, Milim's body began glowing brightly before immediately dashing at her aunt in the sky with incomprehensible speed. Despite my thought acceleration increasing my thinking speed over 100 million times, I could barely track her movements. Milim's form became a blur in my eyes due to her speed. In less than a fraction of a second, Milim closed the gap between her and Velgrynd. A bright light filled the entire barrier, reaching all the way up into the heavens. The light was so bright that everyone had to shut their eyes to prevent getting blinded. On top of the blinding display, the force of their clash generated a powerful shockwave that bounced around inside the barrier. Once the pillar of light died down, I saw a sight that would never leave my mind. The ground had been cracked due to the sheer force of Milim's impact despite them being in the air. Thankfully, the barrier managed to withstand the pressure and held up without a problem. But what was extremely concerning was Milim and Velgrynd's change in appearance. I anxiously turned to Veldora, who had a look of straight fear. It. Veldora muttered fearfully. Milim looked incredibly different now. Contrary to her usually childish appearance, Milim gave off a more serious and battle-ready look. She was now clad in dark purple armor with golden accents. From the center of her head was a red draconic horn, and she now had large wings. Her fist was in direct contact with Velzard's snow crystal barrier, which had been cracked. On the other hand, Velzard now appeared to be a mature-looking woman. She had become taller, her breasts slightly larger, and her overall demeanor became more divine. Her blue and white off-shoulder dress was replaced with a black and white dress that showed off her features. Accentuating her new look were the blue detached sleeves with golden accents. And to top it off, her eyes were now glowing golden. Just like mine. I've never seen her this serious in my life. Veldora muttered fearfully, and I gulped in response. Those two have lost it. They're going all out now, I cried out. And no. Rimuru. They're still holding back, he replied apprehensively, and I felt my stomach drop. What do you mean holding back? If that's the case, then I have to do that. Looks like we're left with no choice. Veldora, I'm going to assimilate your energy with me, I declared loudly, and he looked at me slightly confused. Eventually, he understood what I meant, and his fear turned into excitement. Oh, do you mean that skill? He asked excitedly, and I nodded in confirmation. Kuahahahahaha. Very well, Rimuru, I'll hand you my power to help you deal with my sister and niece, he affirmed gladly. That's why you're my sworn brother, thank you. I thanked him loudly before holding my hand out to Veldora. Assimilate it all, Azathoth, I commanded strongly, and Veldora's body vanished. Instantly, I felt my power rising as Veldora's magicules assimilated with me. True Dragon Release. Allows me to borrow the energy of the Veldora and Velzard while they simultaneously exist in the material world. However, if given their consent, I can assimilate all of their energy and temporarily elevate myself to the level of a true dragon. Less than kuahahahahaha. How does it feel to hold the power of a true dragon, Rimuru? Greater than. Ha ha ha. This feels exhilarating. Less than UMU. Then make good use of that power, greater than. Yeah. Right now, my existence value is around 113 million, meaning I hold the highest EP out of any living creature as far as I know. Using this newfound power, I immediately strengthened the barrier to a level far beyond what I could have done without the assimilation. Seal was assisting me all the way through by making sure that the magicule levels reached stability. Now that I held enough power, I was ready to intervene in their fight if it got too messy. Velzard's pav fufufu, it seems that Milim intends to get a little serious. I haven't felt this excited since I moved to Tempest. And the last time I used this form was eons ago during my battle against Guy. While I plan to resolve things with Milim later, why not have a little fun with her first? Envy-san? Can you hear me? At your command, Master? Fufufu, excellent. It is now time to show me what you're capable of. As you wish, Master. Beginning analysis of Milim Nava's attack. Now that's what I like to hear. Another thing, Master. An unknown individual is currently attempting an analysis on you. Shall I interfere? Another one, huh? It's most likely Rimuru, since he did let me know that the arena was absorbed into his imaginary space that would allow him to analyze everyone from a safe distance. There should be no need to interfere with it since I don't mind him analyzing my powers. No need, Envy-san. Very well, Master. Now then. Show me what you've got, Milim-chan.